Let's get to my final guest of the hour, and indeed of the show. Rupert Darwall is author of Green Tyranny and joins us now to talk about, climate protests, virtue signalling, and I'd like to get a little bit more on cheap energy as well, and winter fuel allowances. Good afternoon to you, Rupert.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I did want to talk to you about the National Trust, Chief. I do want to just get your quick thoughts on something actually a guest of caller actually said earlier. Tracy, if you're still listening, really great call in the first hours on air, talking about the winter fuel allowance being scrapped for millions and millions of pensioners, including many on very low incomes. And what she pointed out was, we don't need handouts, she said, pensioners. What pensioners need is cheap and affordable energy. And yet we're in a situation where the government, of course, is looking to spend God knows how much on this ridiculous offshore wind project, and claiming we're going to have all renewable, net zero renewable electricity, by 2030. Whereas they're not going to deliver what we really need, which is cheap energy.
Well, that's absolutely right, Julia. So there are two things the government, already gas, when you burn gas to keep warm in winter, you're paying that there's a carbon price, there's effectively a carbon tax on that. And what the government is likely to do is to switch some of the subsidies for very high cost renewables, particularly offshore wind farms. They're going to spread that from electricity onto the gas bill as well. So you're going to see much higher cost to keep your home warm in winter.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so basic. You wouldn't need to give a winter fuel allowance to people who could afford their energy bills, could you? And yet, again, we have more virtue signalling by the government, but also virtue signalling by the usual suspects of the climate activists. They're planning to hold protests at more than 40 National Trust sites this week. They want to stop the charity from banking with Barclays, because they say Barclays has got links to the fossil fuel industry. So Simon Jenkins, who's a former chairman of the National Trust, has condemned them for these protests, saying they are just virtue signalling. I mean, he's 100% correct, isn't he?
Yeah, he's absolutely right. And I think what's interesting is the sort of the switch in tactics, because what the climate activists are doing are targeting virtue signalling institutions and bodies such as the National Trust. And they know their soft targets. We saw that with, remember, fossil-free books, that collective, and they targeted literary festivals over the links with a big Edinburgh-based, Bailey Gifford, Edinburgh-based fund manager. And of course, if you're in finance, you've directly or indirectly obviously got connections with fossil fuel production, because fossil fuel production is absolutely intrinsic to our modern economy. Yeah. But what that showed was these virtue signalling institutions are just very easy targets.
Yeah. And what they should do is simply say, no, go away. And of course, we had the usual virtue signalling celebrities in that case, the Hay Festival, go, oh, well, I won't turn up then. Oh, well, don't sodding turn up. We don't care. We need to have someone sponsor our festival, otherwise it won't take place. And this is the thing, National Trust, they're using a bank which has links. I mean, the links are getting more and more tenuous, aren't they? And again, it's National Trust were themselves pumping out gas and oil and fracking on their territory. I'd still support them doing that, because we need fossil fuels. And all these idiots, apart from the ones, of course, who are now behind bars and living with the result of their stupid decisions and protests, these idiots don't seem to understand that our entire life is completely dependent on fossil fuels, and will be for their entire lifetimes.
I think one of the most amazing things that one sees, and perhaps you should show them, are some of these videos of these, particularly the women, saying about how they have to protest against oil kills because the country's being destroyed by climate change. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it is a sort of form of brainwashing, and that's what comes off. These people their brains have been completely rinsed. But it is worth seeing them, because you just think these people are so deluded.
It's a religion, it's a cult, it's not based on science. Sorry, it's the science, capital T, capital S, isn't it? Rupert Darwall, author of Green Tyranny, thank you very much indeed for joining us.